The Iran-Israel conflict has escalated dramatically, leaving the entire region on edge. With diplomatic efforts stalled and military tensions rising, what does this mean for global stability and security? Here's a comprehensive breakdown of this unfolding crisis. Looking ahead, the next phase of the crisis will hinge on several critical factors. Recent tensions between Iran and Israel have escalated, marked by a series of provocative actions and counteractions that have heightened regional instability. Iran's support for militant groups and Israel's military responses have created a volatile environment. The potential for a pause in diplomatic efforts could either alleviate tensions or lead to further escalation. The history of animosity between these two nations complicates the situation, with deep-seated ideological differences and territorial disputes fueling ongoing conflict. This complex backdrop makes any resolution particularly challenging and fraught with risk. Secondly, the possibility of direct military retaliation by either Iran or Israel remains a significant concern, especially if provocations continue to spiral. Analysts suggest that the U.S. and European powers will play a crucial role in mediating the situation, attempting to prevent miscalculation that could spiral into a wider conflict. The impact of such a conflict would not be limited to the immediate region. Global oil markets and international security could also be severely affected. A significant escalation could disrupt oil supply routes, leading to increased prices and economic uncertainty worldwide. If diplomatic talks fail and military signaling intensifies, the risks of a broader regional confrontation increase dramatically. Additionally, the involvement of proxy groups in the region may complicate dynamics further, as they could act independently, exacerbating tensions. Observers should watch for any signs of military buildup or further airstrikes in the coming days, which could indicate an impending escalation. As we enter this critical period, the international community must remain vigilant and proactive in seeking avenues for dialogue, as a failure to do so could lead to dire consequences for regional and global stability. The roots of the current crisis can be traced back years, with a long history of animosity between Iran and Israel. Since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, the two nations have been locked in a shadow conflict characterized by proxy warfare and retaliatory strikes. The Iranian leadership, with its ideological commitment to opposing Israel, has consistently viewed the nation as a primary adversary. Over the past few years, the situation has escalated further, particularly as Iran expanded its influence in Syria and Lebanon through support for militant groups like Hezbollah. Israel has responded with targeted airstrikes aimed at curbing Iranian military entrenchment in these regions, leading to repeated cycles of retaliation that have raised concerns of a broader regional conflict. The failure of diplomatic efforts, including the stalled nuclear negotiations, has exacerbated tensions further. The 2015 nuclear deal, which aimed to limit Iran's nuclear ambitions in exchange for sanctions relief, unraveled after the U.S. withdrawal in 2018. Each incident, no matter how small, is interpreted through a lens of deterrence by both sides. This complex history makes even minor provocations potentially dangerous, as both nations remain on high alert for any signs of aggression. The impact of this ongoing conflict extends beyond the immediate region. Countries neighboring Israel and Iran are forced to navigate the precarious balance of power, often aligning with one side or the other. The humanitarian toll in conflict zones, particularly in Syria and Lebanon, continues to rise, exacerbating the plight of civilians caught in the crossfire. Looking ahead, the potential for further escalation remains high, as both nations are unlikely to back down. With the geopolitical landscape continually shifting, the coming months will be crucial in determining whether a path toward de-escalation can be found, or if tensions will spiral further out of control. The escalating Iran-Israel conflict has reached a critical juncture, with significant implications for regional stability and global security. This latest round of tensions began with a series of military exchanges, including airstrikes and missile attacks, which have intensified fears of an all-out war. Immediate consequences are already unfolding, as oil prices are showing volatility, driven by concerns over potential supply disruptions from one of the world's key oil-producing regions. Experts warn that sustained tensions could lead to increased military engagement, drawing in proxy forces from both sides, including militias and irregular combatants with deep-rooted allegiances. Historically, the Iran-Israel rivalry has been marked by a series of confrontations, underpinned by ideological, territorial, and nuclear concerns. Iran's pursuit of regional influence and its support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas have long been a thorn in Israel's side. Conversely, Israel's military operations against Iranian assets in Syria have escalated in recent years, heightening the stakes. The geopolitical landscape is further complicated by the involvement of major powers, with the US and European nations recalibrating their security strategies to address the heightened threat level. A direct confrontation between Iran and Israel could not only destabilize the region, but also severely impact global energy markets, which are already sensitive to geopolitical tensions. The average person should care about this situation, as fluctuations in oil prices can directly affect fuel costs, influencing everything from travel to the overall economy. Furthermore, the potential for a wider conflict raises alarms about humanitarian crises, which could displace thousands and exacerbate existing refugee situations across the Middle East. The ripple effects of such a crisis could strain resources in neighboring countries already grappling with their own economic challenges. Looking ahead, the outlook remains precarious, with diplomatic efforts urgently needed to de-escalate tensions and prevent further military engagement. The international community, including the United Nations, must prioritize dialogue to mitigate the risk of a broader conflict. Failure to address these hostilities could lead to a multifaceted crisis, with repercussions felt far beyond the immediate region. As tensions mount, the urgency for a sustainable resolution becomes increasingly critical, highlighting the need for proactive measures to foster peace and stability in the Middle East. On June 5, 2026, the situation between Iran and Israel intensified dramatically, with Iranian officials declaring there had been no tangible progress in diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions. This announcement emerged amidst ongoing military posturing from both nations, raising alarms among international observers. In the preceding 24 hours, Iranian forces conducted extensive military drills near the Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil supplies, which underscored the strategic significance of the region. Concurrently, Israeli defense officials reiterated their preparedness to respond to any Iranian provocations, emphasizing a readiness to utilize military force if necessary. The crisis escalated significantly following recent airstrikes attributed to Israel against Iranian positions in Syria, which Iran vehemently condemned as acts of aggression and violations of sovereignty. This current standoff is markedly different from previous confrontations, as both nations are now more openly engaging in military exercises and bellicose rhetoric. The Israeli government has witnessed a notable rise in public support for a robust military response, with Prime Minister Naftali Bennett urging caution but simultaneously affirming Israel's right to defend itself against perceived threats. This shift in public sentiment is significant, reflecting a growing concern over Iran's military capabilities and regional ambitions, particularly its nuclear program. The potential impact of this escalating conflict is profound, not only for the immediate region, but also for global stability. Analysts warn that continued hostilities could lead to disruptions in oil supply, affecting markets worldwide and potentially triggering a broader military conflict in the Middle East. The ramifications could extend beyond economic considerations, as regional allies may be drawn into the fray, further complicating an already volatile geopolitical landscape. Looking ahead, the possibility of renewed diplomatic efforts remains uncertain. With both sides entrenched in their positions, the window for dialogue appears to be narrowing. However, the international community, including major powers like the United States and Russia, may need to intervene to facilitate negotiations. The coming days will be crucial, as both nations face mounting pressures to either escalate military actions or seek diplomatic avenues to avert an all-out conflict, which could have lasting consequences for regional and global security. As tensions rise in the Iran-Israel conflict, how far will both sides go before they reach a breaking point? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses of global events.